Hey everybody, it's your boy Mr. Webb here. Gonna walk you guys through the next steps of psychology. Hopefully, week two wasn't too bad for you guys. I'm hoping I'm not killing you guys with work. If you think this is too much for you guys, let me know. I can always dial it back a little bit, but I think this is pretty fair. I just don't want to be the teacher that crushes you while you're getting crushed by like math and chemistry and all that other stuff. But just talk to me, let me know. Today we're going to talk about anxiety disorders, which probably fits because given everything that's going on in the world, anxiety is pretty common. Um, as you can see, my mustache is coming along beautifully. I can attest that it has kept me from getting coronavirus by filtering out particles for me. Um, that said, I'll probably get it and die this afternoon. Um, what we're going to do today is we're going to review just a little bit. I'll show you guys the PowerPoint over anxiety disorders, and I have some video examples. I'm not going to display them here, obviously, but I'm going to post them on the announcement. You don't have to watch them. One of my all-time favorite clips from the Maury Show is in there for an example of phobias. Well worth your time. Well worth your time. Um, so Today, you will see what is an anxiety disorder, how is that different from generalized anxiety disorders or panic disorders, or what is a phobia, and how is that different from OCD, and what is post-traumatic stress disorder, and why is it that we develop these things. It's important that you guys remember that last time we talked about an anxiety disorder, excuse me, all psychological disorders have to follow the three Ds. They have to be deviant, distressful, and dysfunctional. Also, we talked about the idea of the medical model or the biopsychosocial approach. So it is a physical, biological thing as well as a mental, psychological thing. So um, there are five main anxiety disorders. There's generalized anxiety disorder, panic disorder, phobias, OCD, and PTSD. Those of you that have disorders probably have generalized anxiety disorder, which means oftentimes that there's really no one thing that causes you anxiety. You're just an anxious person. A generalized anxiety disorder is characterized by this persistent, uncontrollable tenseness. So, quite literally, you just feel tight, like something's wrong all the time. Your brain is constantly running. So, you have this like neural stimuli constantly hitting you. So, these are oftentimes people that have a hard time going to sleep at night because they're still thinking. They always have this like inability to avoid certain feelings. So everything is perfectly fine. They know everything is perfectly fine, but they always have underneath the surface this idea that something's wrong and they don't know why. This is completely different from a panic disorder. I've heard many people say that they have had a panic attack before. The vast majority of you that feel like you are having a panic attack are not. If you've had a panic attack, you know it. Panic attacks are characterized by like feeling like you're having a heart attack, where at that moment you don't know if you're going to live or die, like you can't breathe, you feel like there's an elephant sitting on your chest. Oftentimes people throw up. It's like this sense of terror, absolute death-defying terror that hits you all at once. Sometimes with people's anxiety disorders hit like and they get this as well. Another type of anxiety disorder, this is what I deal with now. Another type of anxiety disorder is a phobia. Phobias are fears. Um, we all have fears. Some of us don't like mice. Some of us don't like spiders, different things like that. Some of us don't like small spaces. But if it isn't deviant and dysfunctional, then it's not really it. Like if it doesn't keep you, like I have gone out on a run before. Get out of there, Samuel. I have gone out on a run before, and you get that feeling like somebody's chasing you from behind. Like that's scary. That's a fear. But I still go on runs and stuff like that because I know that somebody's going to get me. If you refuse to go on a run because you think somebody's going to chase you down from behind, that's a phobia. Um, refusing to go to your basement because you think there might be a spider down there. That's dysfunctional. Anthony, please stop shaking me. So, the most common thing that people have phobias of are animals. There's all different types of phobias. Agoraphobia is a fear of open places. So these are people that refuse to leave their house because they think something bad is going to happen when they step outside of their house and there's not a roof over their heads. Claustrophobia, many of you have, is fear of enclosed spaces. So this isn't typical of like if you've ever had an MRI and they put you in that little tube and you freak out, that's not really claustrophobia. Claustrophobia is like you can't get in an elevator without freaking out. So there's a big difference there. OCD is a persistent thought or a compulsion. So you do things like you move. You like have to have things organized a certain way. You think about things. So I have an anxiety disorder. I've told you guys about that before. I have OCD. I have persistent unwanted thoughts. So it is an anxiety disorder, but something gets into my head and it loops in my head over and over and over again. And I can't get rid of it. So it's very common for people that have OCD to have this fear about like they're going to get sick from germs or dirt or something like that. Or like if they don't do something like have their shoes lined just right, somebody's going to die. But there's also like actions like checking locks, moving doors, things like that, feeling like something's wrong, having these things that they can't control over and over and over again. That's OCD. If you look at why people have OCD, you can see on this brain scan up here, this red thing, that's your frontal lobe, and your frontal lobe is the reasoning part of your brain. This is where people like make decisions, and you can see it's firing like crazy. So people with OCD's reasoning part of their brain is going nuts constantly, and so they're trying to figure out what's going on and why, and so their body says, you're trying to figure this out because something's wrong, and I'll tell you what's wrong. PTSD is another anxiety disorder, and it's a little bit different from the other ones. PTSD is something where there's a traumatic event and it follows it. So you're looking at things here like a haunting memory, something you keep thinking about, having nightmares, feeling like you can't be in society, like you get super jumpy, you can't sleep because you're obsessing about it while you're thinking. I am now hiding in the only place that a man can get peace in my home, which is the bathroom. So there's always a traumatic event that causes PTSD. That said, women seem to be less likely to get PTSD than men, men twice as likely. We always think about soldiers getting it, but it can be any traumatic event. Holocaust survivors, though, have had almost no PTSD. It was really weird. There's always this idea, too, that you can grow from a traumatic event. So that's always something that's really interesting is like we decided you can grow from it, but then also it can haunt you. Um, there's no one way to explain why people have anxiety disorders. Freud looked at it and said it was because we were like repressing our bad feelings and keeping ourselves from having these bad feelings and thoughts. Um, Not really the case. More likely, it's a learned thing. So, over the course of time, you get conditioned to be afraid. So you learn to be afraid because something has happened over and over again. Like you get bit by a dog, and so you develop a phobia of dogs. Um, you can also observationally learn. So, like when you're a little kid, you see your mom is afraid of spiders, therefore, you internalize that you too should be afraid of spiders. So, another form of learning. Then there's the biological part of it. Like built into you as a person, like is your ancestors' fear of snakes. The person Neanderthal man who was not afraid of snakes got bit by them and died and did not reproduce. So there's always this like built-in fears. Like again, Neanderthal man that wasn't afraid of heights climbed up someplace high and died, whereas the person who was terrified of heights laughed at him as he fell and had more kids. Our genes play a huge role. So they've studied twins that were separated at birth, and oftentimes they develop the same phobias even though they've never met and been completely separated their entire life. So it just goes to show you your genes play a vital role in your developing of anxieties. So this is your homework. I've created a Google Doc and it's got all the anxiety disorders on there. I couldn't fit them all because of the size on the slide, but what you'll do is you'll define it. And this generally describe what are the symptoms, what is it like, how would you describe if somebody has it. Most likely those affected, like PTSD is pretty easy, like somebody who's had a traumatic event. Phobias are a little bit more complex. Specifics and key points, for most of them, this will probably be blank for you, but you can always add stuff in, little notes that you have. That's really all you have to do this week besides take the quiz here over this video is just make sure that you are filling this out and turning that back into me. I also have all of these clips. The Howie Mandel one is over OCD. It's pretty good. It's a little bit longer, so if that's not the one that you probably want to start with, if you're just going to watch a couple of them, but it's really interesting. He has a major phobia of germs. True Life is got an example about OCD. It's pretty good too. Um, this phobias is the Murray Show. That's pretty good. The PTSD ones are solid, but you can probably live without seeing them. It's very common in your guys' society to know about PTSD already, so I wouldn't consider it vital. Again, guys, you have questions, you want to meet with me, let me know. I'm more than happy to talk to you. Just shoot me an email. We can set up a time to Zoom. You guys can respond to your emails, whatever you want. I'm happy to help you. Good luck.